Good afternoon. I'm Jason Marzek, Senior Director of the Atlantic Council's Adrian Arch Latin America Center. And I want to again welcome our many guests here joining us in person at the Atlantic Council studios here at our headquarters in Washington, D.C., as well as welcome our virtual participants joining via Zoom or other social media channels. It's great to have so many friends here in the room and to welcome and celebrate this important delegation that literally just arrived about an hour and a half ago, 2 hours ago, to Washington. So welcome. It's so great to have you here at this important moment. Today we've come together as friends to celebrate the longstanding partnership between the United States and Chile, a partnership and a relationship that I think has long been taken for granted. 200 years ago, the United States confirmed its first minister plenipotentiary to Chile, and since then the two countries have developed a deep bond built on shared values and mutual goals. From economic cooperation to education, of course culture, the partnership has blossomed into a true friendship. And I'm so delighted that we have both Ambassador Valdez here in person, and we'll speak with Ambassador Meehan via video. Ambassador Meehan, I wish you were here in person as well in just a few moments. But Chile has been an important ally for the United States in the region, playing a crucial role in promoting democracy and stability across Latin America and the Caribbean. The United States works very closely with Chile on a range of issues, including human rights, climate change, and economic growth, among others. And in recent years, the relationship has only become stronger. Both countries have collaborated to increase trade and investment, promote innovation and entrepreneurship, and also deepen our very important cultural ties between the two countries. And this coming June marks, of course, 20 years since the signing of the free trade agreement between the United States and Chile. Today, Chile also stands as a global leader in the region, a stable and prosperous democracy with strong democratic institutions that have been shown yet again over the past couple of years their strength and resilience. As such, Chile has been able to become a regional pioneer and active participant in regional efforts to address issues such as climate change, energy security, and transnational crime. However, we don't want to just celebrate the successes of the past, but rather we want to look at the opportunities for the future. What spaces are there for collaboration with regard to energy, security, economic development? How can Chile's leadership help shape U.S. foreign policy more broadly? So to answer these questions, we are joined by a fantastic group of speakers today for this public event. First, I'll welcome Ambassador Bernadette Meehan via video, our U.S. ambassador to Chile, our incredible ambassador to Chile, and Ambassador Juan Gabriel Valdez, the incredible ambassador of Chile here in Washington, a good personal friend and friend of the Atlantic Council. Both will share their perspectives on the future of U.S.-Chile relations. We're also joined by a fantastic 9-member delegation from Chile, as I mentioned, that just arrived, who are in town for a series of roundtable meetings, back-to-back meetings we have planned over the next couple days to further advance bilateral relations with a focus on commerce, democracy, human rights, climate change, health, pension reform, green energy transformation, among the other issues that will be talked about in the next couple of days. This delegation is composed of 6 members from the Chamber of Representatives, from 6 individual political parties, and 3 members from the academic and business sectors. So with that, I'd like to kick off our conversation with both ambassadors. Ambassador Valdez, I'll invite you to the stage here. I'll walk over and join you, and we'll engage in a conversation with Ambassador Meehan. So please join me in welcoming both ambassadors to the stage. Qué gusto verte. Sí, muy bien, muy bien. Well, I am actually delighted here to be joined in person by Ambassador Valdez and Ambassador Meehan to have you here. Ambassador Meehan, we had your farewell breakfast with actually you and Ambassador Valdez were both here together that time. I believe it was early. It might have been actually been September 1st, if I remember my day correctly, just a few weeks before you departed for Chile. That's part of our series of breakfasts that we do with incoming ambassadors from the region to Washington, and our many friends are departing U.S. ambassadors to the region. And so excited to have this conversation with both of you. Ambassador Meehan, I'll start with you. You've been in post now for just over 6 months. I've been actively seeing your tweets and all the great work you've been doing around the country. So I'd like to start for you, from your perspective, as we're celebrating 200 years. Why is a U.S.-Chile relationship, why is it more important now? I mentioned at the outset how we've been taking the relationship for granted for far too long. Why is it so important now that we change the way we think about our relationship with Chile and we really advance it to the next level?
Sure. Well, first, thank you so much to the Atlantic Council for hosting me today. It is such a pleasure, in particular, to be back together with Ambassador Valdez, who, as I say to everyone I interact with, I just value the partnership and the collaboration that we have. He's been a trusted partner, and so I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to do this with him. And welcome to the Chilean delegation as well. I know each of those members, and I'm grateful for everything that each of them has done to further the bilateral relationship. You ask a very salient question. This year, we celebrate 200 years of bilateral relations, as you noted, the 20th anniversary of the Free Trade Agreement. And of course, we also, in September, will observe the 50th anniversary of the 1973 coup. So it is a year where we can celebrate all of our accomplishments, but also look at all of the challenges and other obstacles that we have overcome together. In this moment, I would say there are probably 6 broad buckets that I would point to as areas where we have common challenges and opportunities, and none of them can be advanced or tackled alone. And this is why it's so important that we work together. Broadly, we're looking at irregular migration and migration flows across the region. This is a challenge that no one country in the region can tackle on its own, and the United States and Chile both have very unique roles to play in helping to solve this crisis. The second is economics, trade, commercial relationships. We have a vibrant commercial relationship with Chile. We celebrate 20 years, as we said, of the Free Trade Agreement. We have seen bilateral trade more than quadruple since the signing of that agreement. We invest in the United States. We are the #1 foreign direct investor in Chile across a broad number of sectors and areas, and we would like to see that investment increase, as well as seek out opportunities for more Chilean investment in the United States. Human rights and democracy. In a period in time where we see autocratic tendencies on the rise across the region, democracies in trouble across the region, Chile, in particular, under President Boric, has been a stalwart defender of democracy, of citizen participation in government, and protection of human rights. And one of the most recent examples of that was the effort by the United States to receive safely 222 Nicaraguans who had been exiled and expelled by the Ortega Murillo regime, and also President Boric's offer of citizenship for more than 300 Nicaraguan citizens who had been stripped, to the extent that you can be, of your citizenship by the same regime. Environment and climate. Presidents Biden and Boric have a shared commitment to doing more to conserve the environment, to combat climate change, to develop renewable and safe, clean forms of energy. So this is another area where we have close collaboration and we can't achieve things on our own. Science and technology. The U.S. has over $1 billion with a B invested in scientific infrastructure in Chile, primarily in space and astronomy. We contribute over $500 million a year towards Antarctic research in partnership with Chilean institutions, including their Antarctic Research Institute. And the last broad bucket that I would mention is security. In a moment in time where we see increasing security challenges related to transnational organized crime, to drug cartels and emerging threats, including cyber warfare and cyber attacks. These are challenges that don't respect boundaries. And so having Chile and the United States work together hand in hand on each of these opportunities and challenges means that we're better prepared to produce results for our own citizens and to others in the region and around the world.
Great. Thank you so much, Ambassador Meehan. Let me turn to you, Ambassador Valdez. Ambassador Meehan just mentioned 6 priorities of the relationship. It actually goes to some of the questions I have for both you and her. As we think about those 6 different priorities, how do you, from your perspective, Chile is the relationship with Chile is more important than just the bilateral relationship. The relationship with Chile, I see it as being important from a regional perspective too, in promoting common values. How does Chile work with the United States, and what other opportunities could there be to really enhance the ways in which we further some of those priorities across the region writ large as well?
Well, first of all, let me say that I want to thank the Atlantic Council. I'm so happy to be here with a delegation of members of Congress. This is not, as it is normally called in this country, a bipartisan delegation, but a multi-party delegation. And I'm particularly happy to be along with my colleague and friend, Bernadette, whom I will see also on next Monday because of the visit of the American senators to Santiago. I think that one of the main reasons why our relationship is so good at present is because we share exactly the same visions on many areas, and the 6 areas that the ambassador has mentioned are also our 6 areas of concern. And in those areas we have a possibility of cooperation which goes much beyond what we have been doing up to now. There are avenues of cooperation which are open to us, and some others in which we have to reflect and discuss. I think that for Chile, it is particularly important the issue of the environment and the way in which we are facing the transformation of our energy grid, the possibilities of associating ourselves to measures that the United States has adopted recently, and to see if we are, given the fact that we have the free trade agreement, in or out of these measures is something that has enormous importance for the type of decisions that the Chilean government will make in the future. I was remembering yesterday when we adopted the decision to join the free trade agreement with the United States, because this decision was not taken in isolation. It was taken in a context in Latin America. It was taken in a context in which the Latin American countries had, as they have today, a series of initiatives to work together and to associate themselves. We have never seen our relationship with the United States in contradiction to the relations we need to have with our neighbors in Latin America. Therefore, we are continuing our policies to strengthen our links in Latin America and to create the ambience and the context in order to exchange views and to cooperate in issues so serious as the issue of migration. But at the same time, we have an association with the United States which is strategic and which was based on a free trade agreement 20 years ago. I have to say, and I have to remember, that at the time this decision was taken, it was not easy to explain to all of our friends in Latin America that we were making this decision. And those who have, probably the members of Congress are too young, but those of us of my age will remember very well what were the difficulties and the situations that were created at the time with our neighbors. I think that today we have opportunities which are of the same dimension. And this dimension is extremely important for the future of our foreign policy and for the way in which we will work in the world in areas as important to Chile as climate change and the issues of the transformation of our energy grid. I think that in that sense, the association between Chile and the United States has an enormous future.
Can I jump in there? On climate change and sustainability specifically, I'll go back to you, Ambassador Meehan. What do you see as opportunities to further advance that relationship? You mentioned that there are still many opportunities on the table. What in an optimal scenario, how can we further enhance our relationship as we're jointly trying to tackle the impacts of climate change and improve sustainability?
It is obvious that Chile has some advantages that we have to consider. Chile has 46% of the reserves of lithium in the world, and we are producing green hydrogen, and we can produce green hydrogen in the future and become one of the best producers, most important producers at a better price. We are very clearly inviting the American enterprises to invest in those areas in Chile. And I think that this investment could be decisive, not just in terms of the development of lithium and the development of this wealth that Chile has, but also to create channels and chains of supply that will allow us to create a system that works together.
Yeah. Ambassador Meehan, we mentioned the Senate delegation that you'll be welcoming in just a few days, and this is why we have a delegation of members of the Chilean chamber as well here. We see from the Atlantic Council the importance of these congressional ties and how those congressional ties can really further deepen the relationship. From your perspective, having now been in Chile since I believe September, what do you see as the areas in which in your wish list, in which we could really further accelerate the relationship to new heights, looking into the future, looking to 2024, 2025? What optimal scenario? What are some areas of cooperation that we would be new areas of cooperation that we'd be able to advance between the two countries?
Sure. Well, certainly at the top of, if it is a wish list, I would put the bilateral tax treaty, which currently resides in the hands of the US Senate. And I know US businesses and our Chilean partners have been waiting patiently for many years for that to pass through the US Senate. So if we're talking about dream wish lists, that would be at the top. And I know Kathy Barkley and others in the visiting delegation have been champions of that and doing all they can to help ensure its success. But I think the answer to your question more broadly is, in each of the 6 buckets that I already talked about, none of those are areas where there is a final destination or an endpoint, right? I think leaders in the United States are quite fond of saying democracy is a journey. It is not an endpoint. We never reach the point where we have a perfect democracy. Migration is going to be an ongoing issue as long as we have political and economic instability in the region. Science and technology, certainly of all areas, is an area where we would hope to never reach a final destination because there is always more to explore and always more to do. As Ambassador Valdez said, Chile has really been a leader in the field of environmental conservation, preservation, and development of renewable energy. Copper, lithium, it's not just about how you extract these minerals, it's about how you do it in a sustainable way. And of course, as Chile gains more wealth from all of its natural resources, it's about narrowing inequality. And the US is involved in a similar effort at home, where we have pretty dramatic rates of inequality as well. And so it really is a partnership where there is so much to learn from each side of this relationship. But those are some of the big areas that I would point to, where, again, it is an ongoing, constant journey, and there is no final definition or endpoint. But in 20 or 30 years, you would hope to have further progress in each of those areas.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Meehan. I'm glad you also mentioned equality. We're approaching the end of March here, where at the Atlantic Council we do every March a Mujeres at the Table campaign. So I appreciate you mentioning the importance of gender equality. Of course, Chile's leadership on human rights issues, democracy promotion, trade, investment, among others. We have a full program here. We're going to have an opportunity to hear from the many Chilean members of the delegation that just arrived in Washington. So I want to thank you, Ambassador Meehan, for joining us virtually. Ambassador Valdez, great to have you here. Ambassador Meehan, you'll miss the appetizers and snacks after the event, unfortunately, but that'll be for the next time. Also, thank you. Please go ahead and always make sure following Ambassador Meehan on Twitter, Ambassador Valdez on Twitter. I hear there's a big debate recently on Twitter on the origin of pan con palta or avocado toast.
Avocado toast.
You'll get all the inside scoop if you follow the respective Twitter accounts. So thank you so much for joining us, and we're going to now turn to a quick video that was created by both embassies around the bicentennial of US-Chile relations. Then I'm going to turn over to Diego Area, our Director of Strategic Development, to kick us off into the next phase of the conversation. So again, Ambassador,
thank you so much.
Thank you. Ambassador Valdez, so wonderful to have you here.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Hace 200 años, el gobierno de los Estados Unidos confirmó a Hayman Allen como el primer ministro plenipotenciario de Estados Unidos en Chile.
Desde entonces hemos construido una relación estrecha, a veces intensa, que ha atravesado tiempos difíciles, pero que siempre hemos sido capaces de superar.
Forjando una relación profunda que ha contribuido a hacer un mundo más próspero, equitativo, democrático y con más conocimientos.
Hemos aprendido juntos a reconocer la democracia como la única forma de gobierno que promueve el pleno respeto de los derechos humanos.
Hemos construido economías sólidas y un próspero intercambio comercial entre nuestros dos países.
Y levantado puentes culturales que entre nuestros pueblos que han perdurado
Y que van a continuar perdurando.
durante las generaciones por venir.
Desde el desierto de Atacama hasta la Antártica.
Las mentes más brillantes de chilenos y estadounidenses han construido algunas de las herramientas de investigación más grandes, más innovadoras y más avanzadas de la historia.
Y las han utilizado para realizar algunos de los descubrimientos más importantes de la humanidad.
Hemos estudiado las estrellas y las profundidades del espacio exterior.
Y explorado las extensiones congeladas no conocidas del Polo Sur.
Nos hemos asociado para aportar al mundo minerales cruciales para la transición energética que permita un medio ambiente sano para las futuras generaciones.
Y cuando el mundo aún continúa enfrentando muchos desafíos,
los cimientos que hemos construido le dan a Chile y a Estados Unidos las herramientas, el conocimiento y los recursos para continuar avanzando juntos.
Como socios para un futuro mejor.
Como socios para un futuro mejor.
Welcome back, everyone, and thank you again for joining today's event. I want to recognize Ambassador Valdez and Ambassador Meehan for sharing their perspectives on the bilateral relationship between the US and Chile. From now on, the rest of the conversation will be conducted in Spanish. Entonces, hola, gracias por venir. Gracias a la audiencia que se une en persona y a los que se nos unen por Zoom. Mi nombre es Diego Area, yo soy el subdirector de...
Thank you for being here with us. I am the Vice Director of Strategic Development. I'm Diego Aria. I'm so happy to be kicking off this series. We're here with AmCham Chile and the University Andres Bello. I share this panel with fantastic representatives. We have Catalina Perez, the Vice President of the Chamber of Deputies, Kathleen Barclay, the Director of AmCham Chile. And she is also, we also have Jorge Alessandre with us. Now, before we begin, I just want to say democracy is facing challenges and being transformed because of technology, and Chile is no exception. It is also facing challenges. Chile is being transformed. It faces challenges. This began in 2019 when protests began. Students who were protesting against the increase in public transportation, and that evolved in content, the number of persons involved, and the process ended up with a Constituent Assembly and a plebiscite. The Chilean democracy is being challenged. And so we have several actors with us from the political sphere, as well as from the private sector, who, although they represent different parties and ideologies, advancing solutions for the future. So the first question, Vice President, is for you. We know that we're at an historical crossroads and that you're at the center of this. What has been your experience? What are your lessons learned? And how do you see the political future of Chile? Well, first of all, good afternoon. I want to thank you for the invitation and the possibility of participating. This is a complex question. It is a complicated time, and I am part of that new generation. We're a political generation which came at the end of one model, and we've had a recomposition of traditional political parties after the end of the dictatorship. And that goes hand in hand, in my perspective, at a crisis of democratic crisis and at the end of a transitional pact. After the end of the dictatorship, there was a transition period, allowed us to overcome poverty and inequality, but our generation was born in democracy and we want to go beyond what we had. And so the democratic transformation is not from 2019, rather it comes from a student movement in 2006, 2011, the feminist movement. And then there was this unease in Chile, which continues to exist and is a challenge for democracy. And I think we need to be proud as a country. Although democracy is in tension, it has been able to overcome these crises and stresses in democracy. So those who are working in the institutions, well, we reached an agreement on a new constitution, which channeled our debate to be able to meet demands and to look at the economic structure, institutional structure, and also different proposals from political forces. During this first constitutional process, we did not achieve a new constitution, but I think it did allow us to think about what's going to characterize it in the future, what is going to be the social compact for the next decades. How can we address challenges, new challenges, climate change, globalization, and how we see globalization to be able to fight new problems like drug trafficking, immigration, which are opportunities to be able to meet these.
I completely agree. And I think many of us are seeing how the situation is unfolding in Chile. When we saw what had happened in Venezuela, and not just Venezuela, many countries in the region, I think we have a lot to learn from Chile. And thank you very much for coming. You are a member of the US-Chile Relations Commission. I was wondering how you see the future of the bilateral relation. Once you return to Chile, what results are you hoping to bring back with you so that you can enhance this bilateral relation? Thank you, Diego. I wanted to thank everyone who's joining us today, AmCham, the two embassies, which have worked hand in hand. Also, Andrés Bello University, Ambassador Juan Valdez, who was defending avocado toast, which is something that is eminently Chile. We've seen in some of the antisocial behaviors that were reduced because of that. Look, when you're trying to defend avocado toast, that's the same as our ambassador defending everything from Chile. Our group is called the Group of Friends Chile, the United States. And all of those of us who are here are members of this. But this friendship is about exchanges. It's about joint work. It's about sharing ideas, taking advantage of opportunities. The ambassador Mijan was saying that these are opportunities open to us, and how in Chile, through our parliament, through exchanges, through the private sector, how are we going to make the most of that window of opportunity? In Chile, we are not used to certain issues, but in the United States, we've seen that there's an opportunity for an institutional solution. Even though there are tensions that are trying to undermine democracy in Chile, we must move forward through institutional means. this is something that has to apply to every different area: climate change, immigration, improvements to democracy. We are looking at a new constitution for the second time with better, clearer rules. And as the chair of this Chile-US friendship group, the idea is to strengthen ties, and it's to knock on the door when we need assistance, not just with things that have worked well in the United States, but it's also to show things that have worked quite well in Chile. For example, these are opportunities that may not be available for many years. Chile must take advantage of the opportunity, otherwise it will be lost. There was an example given by President Biden. You look at the opportunity of the past, you see Facebook, you see Corner Shop, you see all of the opportunities of the past, but the opportunities of the future have to be looked for as if we were using a submarine periscope. They're very small. We have to identify them, then we have to take ownership and implement them. And I'm going to make every effort to ensure that US and Chile are doing everything in our power through security, through many different areas to improve the relationship. We are always trying to improve democracy. Democracy, it will never reach perfection. We're all in this boat together. We're all in the hemisphere, and we've seen opportunities lost in the past. We have a young president, a left-wing coalition who have said that human rights are important, human rights in a country like Nicaragua, and we all want to protect these rights. You have many allies in the city to promote the relationship between the two countries, Atlantic Council and the Adrian Arch Center, but you also have to your left a great partner, Kati. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to ask you a pretty evident question. What are the main lessons learned in the success in public-private partnerships that have helped to pave the way? Thank you, Diego, and to the Atlantic Council for the opportunity. I find this a very interesting opportunity. I would also like to thank both the United States and Chile for having built a productive relationship, so productive over the past 200 years, and to Ambassadors Mijan and Valdez, who are working to strengthen that relationship even more, and for the opportunity to engage in a dialogue with the delegation of congressional deputies. No public-private partnership could have been successful without the 200 years worth of work, because it's based on shared values about democracy, respect for human rights, among other areas. In these 200 years, and these shared values have allowed the private sector to work hand in hand, that Jorge and the ambassador have already mentioned. I would like to share 4 very specific examples. One that's very successful that I think we're all well aware of, which is the free trade agreement between Chile and the United States, which we will be commemorating its 20 years of success. There was very close public-private partnership here. We had the opportunity to work in the coalition of US companies with the US administration, and Chile also had its delegation of companies, which raised very important points. And thanks to these public-private partnerships and the work we've done together over so many years, we've seen trade between the two countries quadruple. US investment of more than $27 billion in Chile, and in different sectors. In this growth and the relationship have both been very inclusive. The US is the most significant market for Chilean SMEs. There are many different sectors and industries, and Many companies in Chile, both small and medium-sized, are exporting to the US. But the relationship goes beyond trade and figures. It's about having a level playing field. The free trade agreement with Chile, I think it's the first at least with the United States, but in the world, that included both labor and environment chapters. We have very high standards for competition, and we're working off the same sheet of music. And again, beyond trade, there have been significant exchanges, technology transfer, inclusion, diversity, training, education. These have been very important as well. My second example, and this is a path, I believe there is much left to be done for energy transformation in electric vehicles and transportation. Both ambassadors alluded to this. There's much that can be done by small and medium-sized enterprises through trade facilitation, improvements to trade facilitation, and regulations that will facilitate the participation of SMEs in international trade. As a second example, this is something we've seen develop in Chile in recent years, that is the Ministry of Economy, the Ministry of Women, the Chamber of Commerce in Santiago, and a Confederation for Production. And it's about how to improve and increase women's entrepreneurship and women's participation in the labor market in Chile. We wanted to identify the untapped resources of women's talent in Chile and do this in partnership between the public and private sectors. There have been many discussions between the business community and these talented women. We want to see women included and incorporated in boards of directors, for example. The third has something to do with what we've seen unfold over 3 Chilean administrations, which was the Nature Fund in Chile. This was, again, 3 administrations were involved in its creation. It involved many nonprofit organizations, both in Chile and the United States. What is this? Chile has a great deal of natural resources, and protecting its resources is very important when it comes to combating climate change. Oceans, parks, we've seen the engagement of many US organizations like Tompkins, Goldman Sachs, etc. However, for this, we need money. We've been looking for funding to protect Chile's natural resources and have done so with and on behalf of communities. This has been very important for the oceans and to protect water resources. IDB, the World Wildlife Fund, CONAF, the Environment Ministry, among other agencies, as well as the private sector. And the fourth item I would like to mention, especially looking forward, are agreements between Chile and California and Chile and Massachusetts. These are an excellent example of public-private cooperation. Clearly, California, since the 60s, has been an important partner for Chile. Innovation, transformation, protection of water and oceans. It has been tremendous. In the case of Massachusetts, we're talking about biotechnology and education, many success stories. All of this will be important as we look forward. There are lots of opportunities to invent new ways of working together. Exactly. We've been talking about opportunities and success stories. We could do so for hours. The value of time and Unfortunately, our time is up today, but I wanted to thank you, Kathy, to the two deputies. I now invite you to the next panel, and I will turn things over to Isa Kaur, who is the Director General of the International Relations Department at the Andrés Bello University.
Bueno, muy buenas tardes, muchas gracias.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Diego. And I want to welcome everyone to our second panel, Deputy Ibanez, Leiva, Perez, Chalper. We have a short period of time and a very demanding schedule. I want to dive right in. We have heard about the political challenges to the US-Chile bilateral relationship, and I wanted to dive in to specific issues that we can share with the public and hear from you. I want to begin with Joana Perez. I know your leadership in issues like tech development and the environment. Chile is important not just at a national level, but also regionally. I'm talking about sustainable technology and how this can be part of the agenda to develop the country and in keeping with local communities. Thank you so much. I want to greet our ambassadors, and indeed our challenges facing our country. And this is legally speaking, having a framework for investment. Our country has been going forward in the environmental sector. We have a ministry. We've been doing this since the 90s. We have a biodiversity service that can allow us to protect our heritage. I also think we cannot lose sight of the fact that we have a very diverse country. Its splendor is so diverse. We also have the issue of fishing that needs to be more sustainable, but we also have industrial fishing. With respect to the forest sector, we need to move forward, not just with respect to exporting raw materials, but our commodities, but we have been working with the university. We have a public policy in this sense, but we need support for it and recognize the communities. We have lithium in the north. We need to be able to have a legal policy that is supported by the communities. This is also the case in clean energy. When we talk about wind energy, I represent Bio, and we want regulation in this sense. We've been looking at other countries. We want a more sustainable policy that is friendlier to the communities. We need to continue to progress We need certifications, for example, quality agreements like what we have with the United States, and also look to our communities. And we are so happy to have more support for our bilateral relations. Yes, we believe in the power of Chile, and Chile has many natural resources, but we also have this very important constituent process that has been followed closely by the international community. Raul Leiva, how do you see this evolution? In 2019, 15 November, there was an agreement. We had this beginning of the constituent process, but that was rejected. And we were reminded by Representative Alessandre that in May, we will have an election of those that will go forward with the second process. Do you think today that citizens feel that they are part of this constituent process? First of all, politics must respond to our current context, not just in our country, but throughout the world. We see polarization of the political sphere, and that's a reality. And it makes democracy more complex because we're facing challenges with respect to dialogue. As you have pointed out, Chile internationally is seen or being looked at closely to see if our constituent process can actually be successful. I think we need to respect democracy, and our citizens do, and they realize the work we're doing. And many have said that this is a specific case, the fact that we developed a constituent process that has been frustrated. Usually, when things don't go the way you want them to, when they become mistakes, usually what you do later is not to assume these mistakes and learn from them. But what is positive about this new constituent process that will allow us to learn from our mistakes, be responsible, and think how political actors made many mistakes that frustrated a process in which we were very hopeful about. And this democratic process, well, Chile can only solve it through more democracy. And I think that this friendship with the United States is important. We have very different political systems, and perhaps we could look at them as systems that could not be compatible. And I must recognize that this second constituent process, well, we have contributed to it, and sectors like conservative sectors have contributed a great deal. They are conservative, but they are democratic. This is a process that needs to leave polarization behind. We need to be capable, and I also want to take on this role. We need to include minorities in this process. Democracy must respect minorities. They have something to contribute. And if we don't recognize this, then it is a dialogue that goes nowhere. Sometimes when there's polarization, politics may not, or the political sphere needs to overcome this. We are going to elect our new representatives to participate in the process. There will be experts that also will be proposing a draft of the new constitution, and we're going to have an obligatory vote on it. Thank you very much. Chile had a process and must continue forward to and be innovative. And the business sector is very important. Of course, I want to ask Diego Ibanez, the Congress can modify reform laws proposed by the executive. How can it promote innovation and the entrepreneurship, especially with respect to emerging technologies and industries? And how can this play a role in the rest of the Americas? First of all, thank you very much for the invitation. And Jorge, I also wanted to thank you very specifically. I just wanted to add something to what was said before. As I've said before, there are few countries where political actors can sit down and talk about how to advance their history and move forward. Whether you agree or not agree with all the policies of our administration, well, regardless of this, what is at stake in Chile and Latin America and the entire world is looking at us. We have institutions and policies that must be useful. Regardless of your ideology, they must be useful for our citizens. And I think that the parties who are committed to this, wherever they are on the spectrum, they've understood this. And this is politically speaking, economically speaking, and culturally speaking, this is vital. And what's at stake is legitimacy of our democracy and our institutions. So this is a crossroads. We need to make sure that democracy is seen as something legitimate. We have what's going on in Europe. We have also what has gone on here. Now, I believe that Chile, as an important exporter, has production chains and supply chains that are important: lithium, copper, forest products, and that has created sectors where SMEs can participate. And of course, then we have larger enterprises. But what's the flip side? Today, of 100 enterprises in Chile, 98 are SMEs. And they give 60% of the jobs to our people. But the average wage is $500, $600 a month, and that's a problem because we do have a large informal economy. A third of our citizens work in the informal sector. It's not as bad as other countries, but still, so we need to strengthen SMEs, and the Ministry of the Economy has proposed to reduce the size of the informal economy. To do so, relief has been provided because during the pandemic, many SMEs had to close or went bankrupt. So their state help. So we've decreased also the tax rate, and we are using tax incentives to try to promote SMEs. And this can help also with respect to proposing new innovations. What the government wants to do, well, there are four things that are critical. First of all, We want an increase in the volume of exports from SMEs. That means we need to reduce bureaucracy and red tape as far as maritime exports. We need to digitize processes. In Chile, we have offices where we have just papers up to the ceiling. And, exporters have to go there and deal with the red tape. It makes things very complex. We are developing digital technology for SMEs. The other thing is that the state needs to modify its procurement processes to promote SMEs. For example, it needs to give public resources so that SMEs can participate in public procurement processes. And then we have the relationship between SMEs and large enterprises. More than 80% of the volume that comes from trade is focused in 3 holdings. And this really is a barrier for the competition of SMEs. And so we do need to assess the situation. And since the administration will be in power till 2025, we need to see what we can do.
Thank you very much, Diego. I would like to invite the other Diego to speak. COVID-19 was a horrible pandemic that took lives across the world. And it created certain unity, but that means synergies, it means potential, but not in every country. If we don't coordinate amongst countries, if in coordinating public health policies, be in trouble. How do we bring together both the public sector and the private sector if we look at public health challenges in the future? And considering that we experience millions of deaths worldwide in COVID-19, I wanted to first thank Atlantic Council for commemorating the 200 years of friendship and relations between our 2 countries. This is important because I think if there's something that the US and Chile have in common, it's the fight for democracy and human rights. And right now, democracy is in trouble. That is the first thing we need to address. There's nothing more important than democracy. And so we have a huge responsibility vis-a-vis Latin America. And that is the basis for which I will give a response. Looking at the constitutional order, and I agree with what Diego was saying, the matter of health is key. We had the most successful transformation from a dictatorship to a democratic government, but democracy means that everybody needs to be able to benefit from its positive. And we talk about the political transition, we have to talk about the social transition. There are internal tensions. I think that we have to look at things from a more revolutionary standpoint, and we were not able to contain things. So what we're seeing in Chile is an institutional crisis. One of the bases of the conversation is that there is so much polarization, but they are able to sit down, come together, and talk about these 2 different perspectives. One has to do with rule of law, social rule of law, and social rights. And I know I don't want to be too lengthy because I know our time is limited, but social rights in the world, we've started to hear people ask, what is the role of the state? To be successful, it's not confrontation, it's cooperation. The people and the state have to cooperate. often there's this temptation to pass just new laws. What's important about our relations with the US is the US has helped us to better manage our hospitals. One of the problems in Chile is that we do not manage our health services well. We have a very centralized system. We don't have good primary care. And so an exchange of information and knowledge is important. Specialists, new technologies, there are new pathologies. In many cases, we're not in a position to use digital tools to help advance our healthcare system. In terms of prevention, and I'll wrap up with this, we want people to get sick less. The idea we have right now is to cure a sick person, but if we have basic services, if we are able to look at and do research about pathologies, particularly those associated with climate change, to move forward in that, that would be very beneficial to the country. I think there's a lot we can do together between the US and Chile in this area. Thank you, Diego. With that, we will wrap up our panel. I wanted to thank Atlantic Council once again, and the American Chamber of Commerce in Chile, the University of Andrés Bello. And I'm very pleased that people in the US were able to hear from stakeholders in Chile. We will turn things back over to Jason. Thank you, Isa. Thank you to the delegation for your words. We only had an hour to talk about our relation. We could talk about it much longer. I wanted to thank Ambassador Valdez once again for your participation, for your friendship. I would like to invite you all to have some lunch. I wish it could be choripanes, but it's not. Unfortunately, we have some cheese and crackers and a couple of other things. You have a very busy schedule for the next 2 days for this delegation. There will be a number of different roundtable discussions, some visits to the capital. In Atlantic Council, we are making this possible, working hand in hand with our partners, the 2 embassies, AmCham Chile and the University of Andrés Bello. This is the time. This is the time to move forward in the relationship between the United States and Chile. We have to take the next step, and we're hoping that today's event and these 2 days of activities will help us along that way. I also wanted to thank Ignacia Yoya Peters, my Chilean colleague, who did all of the hard work that went into organizing this event. So I would like to thank you for our virtual audience. I would like to thank you for joining us. And for those who are here, I would like to invite you to our networking session. Thank you.